Whoa, 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 AC podcast. Oh, I'm glad I waited to do this podcast episode this week. There's a lot to get into. Obviously, these divisional games, I got to get into it, and then I got to get into these AFC, NFC championship matchups and what to expect and break those down. Then you already know what time it is. The Eagles have a new head coach. They've hired one today. So I have to get into that and break that down and see what's going on with that. So, there's some rejuvenated energy for once, finally in the city. It's been a long, dreadful season and off season. But let's get to these games. So, first game that was on the docket for Saturday, Green Bay Packers and the Los Angeles Rams. Coming into this matchup, obviously I was a little skeptical. And if you guys remember, when I talked about the Green Bay Packers over the season, the one thing I always lamented was I was worried about their run defense, and the Rams were one of those teams I was worried about them encountering in the playoffs because Green Bay Packers, especially against the Bucs and a few other teams, got ran all over. But the game that showed me that the Packers could go to the Super Bowl and survive a team that can run the ball effectively was the Titans game at the end of the season, and the Packers dominated that game. And that is what told me that the Packers are not the finesse team I thought they were. And so here came the Rams, who ran all over the Seahawks. And Aaron Rodgers basically punked this number one defense. Dropped 32 on them like it was nothing. 92 QBR. Aaron Jones ran for 99 yards on 14 carries. Obviously, some of that, the Packers ran for 188 rushing yards, 5.2 yards a clip. Obviously, some of that was due to the fact that Aaron Donald wasn't 100% and he was out a lot of the game. So there was that. And then you just look at, the matchup I thought was going to be, box office, Devontae Adams versus Jalen Ramsey. Didn't live up to the hype, really. But we got to give Matt LaFleur a lot of credit. He's went 13-3, 2 straight seasons, number one seed this year, number one offense this year. And for all the people that were criticizing the Green Bay Packers for not drafting a receiver, you're still the number one offense. How much better could you get? You're number one in points scored. How much better could you get with another receiver? And then you wouldn't have this breakout of Robert Tonyan if you got another receiver in the draft. So I think any questions about Matt LaFleur, because people were criticizing this guy. People were skeptical of him, although Packers fans were tired of the stale and rudimentary offense that Mike McCarthy was running, and they saw how that turned out when he got hired by the Cowboys. It's Kellen Moore's offense, not Mike McCarthy, so we need not even discuss that any further. But looking at this from the Rams' perspective, they had a good season. Jared Goff, obviously he wasn't 100% with his thumb, coming back from surgery after a broken thumb. Got sacked 4 times. Rams couldn't run the ball nearly as effectively as they wanted to in the Green Bay Packers. They fell behind, early in this game. So there just wasn't really much margin for error. And obviously with Jared Goff's limited throwing ability and lack of, deep passing game, it just was it was just a long day for the Los Angeles Rams, and they just couldn't keep up with the Green Bay Packers as far as scoring. So you have that working for you. And now there's reports that Sean McVay and Jared Goff need marriage counseling. So we don't even know if Jared Goff's going to be the quarterback next year. So that's a whole other thing. But Rams had a good season. They'll be back in contention. We'll see if they have a new quarterback. Green Bay, I'll get to them a little further once, I break down these other games. Getting to the next game, Baltimore Ravens versus the Buffalo Bills. Lamar Jackson obviously wasn't very good in this game. He got hurt, obviously, but I think it was over anyways, as far as I'm concerned. Obviously, the pivotal turning point play in this game was when the Ravens were driving and Lamar Jackson threw a pick 6 into cover 2 on the goal line against the Buffalo Bills, and Teron Johnson returned it for a 101-yard interception for a touchdown, which ultimately was, a 14-point swing in the Buffalo Bills' favor. Other than that, Bills didn't really do much on offense, honestly, if we're being quite honest. Josh Allen, a 51 QBR, didn't throw for many yards on this tough Baltimore Ravens defense, couldn't manufacture much of a running game. Stephon Diggs, he had a day. And we know he's one of the top 5 receivers in the league. But other than that, wasn't really much to speak of. Baltimore Ravens, they need to upgrade their passing attack as far as that's concerned because it's, they got to develop Lamar as a passer. We already know what Lamar can do as a runner. We know he's special. We know he's electric. We know he runs with so much force and he puts pressure on you to just play zone coverage the whole game because his feet, you can't turn your back on him in man-to-man. But it's time for Lamar Jackson. They need to get some more weapons for him as far as the receiving threats on the outside because they can't do it with Dez Bryant. Dez Bryant cannot be your possession receiver. Yeah, we know he can hit Mark Andrews. We know Hollywood Brown can, be targeted from time to time as the speedster on the outside, but they need to get Lamar Jackson a legit number 1 receiver because that's what they're lacking. They also need to, make some hires as far as some passing game coordinators or something, or update or upgrade their offensive system because they can't run themselves to a Super Bowl. We know the Baltimore Ravens can run the ball. We know they can do it. But can they pass the ball on third downs when they need to? Because I go back to it. On third downs and fourth downs, what do the Ravens normally do? Use Lamar Jackson's legs to get a first down, quarterback power, quarterback draw, any of those types of things, quarterback sweeps. On the meaningful plays of the game, they don't put the ball in his hands to throw it. They put it in his hands to run it. And you're not running your way to a Super Bowl. It's a passing league. You got to be able to throw it. So from the Baltimore Ravens angle, that's what they got to get fixed for the offseason. Moving right along to this Chiefs game. This one gave me a scare because you guys know I'm a big fan of the Ferrari, Patrick Mahomes, number 15. And once he went down in this game, I feared for everything. I feared that the Chiefs were going to lose this game, but they didn't. They held tough, and Chad Henne deserves a lot of credit, and so does Andy Reid. That's why he's one of the best coaches in the league, arguably a top 2 coach, because obviously we know what Bill Belichick represents. But Baker Mayfield, he didn't play bad. He threw that one horrendous interception to Tyrann Mathieu. Obviously, most of this game, Chiefs, disguising with post-safety snaps, rotating Tyrann Mathieu down and, the middle read hook defender, having him play in a cover 2 robber type of role and, rotating the safety, the other corner and safety deep into a cover 2 shell. Obviously confusing Baker Mayfield, which is something we've seen, even with the Steelers getting picks off of Baker Mayfield early in the season with Minkah Fitzpatrick when he rotated down to a robber role and got a pick off of him for a touchdown. So Baker Mayfield's got to work on his, post-snap processing of the safeties and coverages in the offseason. But overall, I didn't think Baker played bad per se. Cleveland didn't really, stay committed to the running game like I would have thought they would have. But naturally, my thoughts about the Chiefs are this. They know the only way a team can beat them is if they run the ball effectively. And while the Chiefs did run the ball, while the Browns did run the ball effectively, it was too little too late as far as I'm concerned. Not in terms of the score, but they just did stay committed to it throughout the game. I mean, you're looking at Kareem Hunt. He only had 6 touches. That just wasn't nearly enough. Nick Chubb only 13 touches, and then he dropped a couple balls. Just not nearly enough production out of those two. So you have that. Patrick Mahomes, when he was on the field, he was slicing and dicing the Cleveland Browns defense. They were just playing bend, don't break defense. Obviously, you can't do that against the Chiefs. You have to be aggressive. You have to be willing to get up in these receivers facing challenge. You can't play off cover 2, off cover 4, and cover 6. You can't do those types of things against Patrick Mahomes because he's one of the best quarterbacks against zone coverage. You really got to play man and see what happens. That's really what it boils down to. You got to be able to double Kelsey, double Tyreek, and see what you can do. But obviously, we know what this man Patrick Mahomes does. We know. So we need not even discuss this any further. But obviously, the key turning point in this game was the 3rd and 14 where Andy Reid decided to drop back and pass. I thought he was crazy out of his mind with Chad Henne. And Chad Henne ran for 13 yards. 4th and 1. Speed out to Tyreek Hill. Game over. Chiefs go into the AFC Championship game. And let's just keep this in a proper perspective. Because Andy Reid, ever since Patrick Mahomes has been his quarterback, ever since Patrick Mahomes has been a starter, he's been to the AFC Championship game at least. Andy Reid has 3 straight AFC Championship game appearances, and Patrick Mahomes, ever since he's been a starter, has been in the AFC Championship game at least. Let's just remember and be appreciative of the greatness that this man is putting on display at such a young age. This is why he's the Ferrari. And we're going to see a special matchup between him and the Buffalo Bills because I'm looking forward to this. It's going to be something special to watch. I hope it's electric. I want the Chiefs to win, of course, but I will not be mad if the Buffalo Bills win. That'll be an intriguing matchup in the Super Bowl as well with whoever they play. But we need not even take for granted the fact that this guy, Patrick Mahomes, has owned the AFC the last 3 years. Let's just keep this in its proper perspective. He should be arguably going to his 3rd straight Super Bowl if it wasn't for D Ford line up offsides against the New England Patriots in the AFC Championship game after Tom Brady threw an interception. This really should be his 3rd opportunity to go to the Super Bowl, but we'll let it slide. Needless to say, this is going to be an intriguing matchup between the Buffalo Bills and the Kansas City Chiefs, nonetheless. Now we get to the Tampa Bay Bucks 30-20 win over the New Orleans Saints. And if you guys followed me earlier through this podcast through this season, you know I jumped off the Saints bandwagon. Originally, my Super Bowl pick was the Saints and the Chiefs. But Drew Brees, it's over. Hopefully he comes out and announces his retirement like Phillip Rivers did. Because Drew Brees just couldn't throw the ball down the field. Threw 3 interceptions. Devin White, he was just the MVP of this game, just all over the place, recovering fumbles, getting picks. Saints defense just couldn't make enough plays, couldn't force Tom Brady into any turnovers. Neither of these quarterbacks played stellar as far as I'm concerned. Tom Brady only threw for 199 yards. Drew Brees only threw for 134 and 3 picks. It was just a relatively pathetic performance. Drew Brees couldn't throw the ball more than 10 yards down the field, and thus the Bucks, front set or back 7 could just sit on routes, and Michael Thomas went without a catch, had as many catches as you and me sitting at home. Almost looked like he didn't clock into work for the day. So there's that. But when you look at it, their only touchdown, Jameis Winston had as many touchdown passes for the game as Drew Brees, and he only got in for 1 snap and threw 1 pass. Saints had to resort to trickery to get a down the field pass because Drew Brees probably couldn't throw it that far. So, Drew Brees, he's a Hall of Famer, but he's got to hang up the curtain. It is what it is. Now that we get past all that, got past all that mumbo jumbo, let's get to these interesting matchups because the Bucks and the Packers is a rematch of a game we saw this year. And then we have the Bills and the Chiefs. These are 2 intriguing matchups. I want to get to this Bucks game first. Now, I'm picking the Packers to win this game. I think the Super Bowl is going to be the Packers and the Chiefs. I'm just going to put that out there right now. But there's a lot of intriguing matchups, obviously, because last time the Packers just got straight up punked 38-10. Aaron Rodgers threw 2 picks, struggled against the blitz, the whole 9. What's going to be interesting about this game is, the blitz threshold that Todd Bowles decides to have, because he has success blitzing Aaron Rodgers, but I don't think that's going to be nearly as successful again. The one thing that the Bucs feasted on and benefited from against the Saints was that Drew Brees was a stationary target. He couldn't roll out the pocket. He couldn't move left or right. But Aaron Rodgers, this guy, he could throw on the run. He can throw from the pocket. He's mobile, accurate, is running the number 1 offense. And Devontae Adams, the Bucs don't have an answer for him. I can assure you that Jamel Dean and Carlton Davis will not put the clamps on Devontae Adams. I can assure you of that. But who the Bucs need to be wary of is this guy, Robert Tonyan. Robert Tonyan should have made a Pro Bowl. He was a Pro Bowl snub. That's a disgrace. But needless to say, the Bucs linebackers, Levante David and Devin White, they're going to be on the lookout for him. I don't think the Packers are going to be able to run the ball, especially if Vita Vea plays this game. Oh, no, they're not running against Ndamukong Suh and Vita Vea up the middle. They're just Aaron Jones. He's just going to have a long day. And the Bucs, they're a team that dares you to throw because they're number 1 against the run. And you really can't get anything against them. You can't go sideline to sideline against them because Devin White and Levante David, they're just too fast. And if you try to go up the middle and Dominican Sue's ready to meet you there, William Golston, Steve McClendon, there's some big boys up in the beef of that, up in the interior of that defense. So you're not getting that way. But if we have seen anything, we do know that the Bucs secondary can be had. We've seen it against Patrick Mahomes. We saw it against Jared Goff. I mean, we have some examples on display. So even the Raiders threw for a bit on, the Tampa Bay Bucs. So their secondary can be had back there. So it's going to be interesting to see how disciplined and how much man coverage that Todd Bowles decides to put on the back end and how much, he decides to send blitzes. As far as the Packers are concerned, on defense, I'm interested to see whether Jair Alexander is going to match up with Mike Evans or who he's going to match up with. If they decide to match up, the Packers are primarily a zone team, but if they play man to man, I'm guessing they're going to put Jair Alexander on probably Mike Evans. No, they'll probably put Jair Alexander on Antonio Brown and probably put Kevin King, who's 6'3", on Mike Evans. So those are going to be some interesting matchups as far as that's concerned. So that's how that's going to peel out. As far as the Kansas City Chiefs and the Buffalo Bills, I think the player to watch in this game and who's going to be a deciding factor in this game is Tremaine Edmonds, the middle linebacker on the Buffalo Bills. 6'5", rangy, sideline to sideline speed is crucial to their zone coverage underneath. I think he's going to be a big part of how they contain Travis Kelce because I don't see the Bills safeties doing it with Jordan Poyer and Micah Hyde. Well, Micah Hyde maybe, but I see a combination of Micah Hyde and Tremaine Edmonds potentially guarding Travis Kelce, roughing him up, using that speed, that size, that athleticism to affect Travis Kelce. And the big question is, what are the Bills going to do with Tre'Davious White in coverage? Are they going to put him on Tyreek Hill? That's the other question. What are you going to do with those two dudes? And then on the offensive side of the ball, as far as the Buffalo Bills are concerned, attacking this Chiefs defense, I don't know if the Buffalo Bills are going to be able to run the ball. Not that they run it anyways, but this Chiefs secondary can be had. L'Jarius Sneed, he's a good corner. Aside from him, we're talking about Javarius Ward and Bashad Breeland. I think those two dudes can be had as far as I'm concerned. And then you're talking about Daniel Sorensen matching up against, Dawson Knox. We'll see. I'm not a big fan of Sorensen. He's a versatile safety, but we shall see. But those are going to be the things that it comes down to as far as the matchups are concerned and I'm just interested to also see who's going to match up with Stephon Diggs on the Chiefs. Because this man's short area quickness, his route running, his swagger is something to behold. And he is not going to back down from any challenge. And Josh Allen will get this man the football. He will. Make no mistake about it. But I think this is going to be a high scoring game. Because these are two teams that love to pass the ball a lot. And with passes come big plays, and passes also come some turnovers. And I think this is just going to be one of those games where we see an aerial assault. Whoever throws for more yards is going to win this game ultimately, because neither of these teams runs the ball that well. The Chiefs would, if they had Clyde Edwards-Helaire, I feel a little better, but they don't. So, it is what it is. But that's kind of what I'm looking at. But I'm expecting the Packers and the Chiefs to pull these games out and meet in the Super Bowl for what would be a beautiful matchup between Aaron Rodgers and Patrick Mahomes. That'd be one of the very, very special Super Bowls. When we're talking about two of the quarterbacks with some of the greatest arm talent we've ever seen, if not the greatest. So we have that all working for us and on display. And it's just going to be something to behold. So there's that. But when we look at the Philadelphia Eagles, and I don't want to spend forever on this. That's why I'm just putting it in with this podcast episode. But when we look at this Philadelphia Eagles team and the move they just made to hire Nick Sirianni as the new head coach of the Philadelphia Eagles, I have no problem with this move. I honestly don't. Number one, I'm glad it's not Josh McDaniels. That's number one. Number two, this move appears, at least, to signal that Carson Wentz will be the starting quarterback of the Philadelphia Eagles for 2021. Which I also have no problem with because I'm a pro Carson guy. I think he can be fixed and salvaged. Number three, Looks like the owner, which, he should. It looks like the owner told Howie Roseman to kick rocks, which I also have no problem with either. So, when we get to all those things, because when we really boil down this head coaching search, Josh McDaniels, I was I was just really hoping that they weren't going to hire him as the head coach. There was just entirely too much baggage for me. You're talking about how is that even going to work between him and Howie Roseman? Because Josh McDaniels was going to want a certain amount of control as far as personnel. And I don't know why Howie Roseman, who's got a lifetime job with the Philadelphia Eagles, would relinquish any power to Josh McDaniels, although it's being reported that he would have. Yeah, I don't believe that for a second. So you have that. Then you factor in Josh McDaniels' baggage overall. You're talking about a guy that, people are reporting is, there's a fine line between confidence and arrogance, and he's arrogant. He's on that side of the equation as far as arrogance. You're talking about the guy who failed miserably in Denver, rubbed a lot of players the wrong way, like Jay Cutler, Brandon Marshall in his prime. Even got into, this was funny, even got into beef with the long snapper. That is just very amusing to me. The long snapper, out of all people, you're having issues with the long snapper. Ridiculous. So we have that. Then you're talking about the cheating scandals, him videotaping 49ers practices. You had that going on. So the lack of integrity for the game. Is he trustworthy? You have that. And then you talk about the stunt he pulled in 2018 or 2017, 2018, when he backed out of the Colts job, reneging on that after essentially agreeing to terms with the Indianapolis Colts. And thus it led to the Colts getting Frank Reich, the offensive coordinator from the Eagles, after they won the Super Bowl. And he ultimately ended up being their head coach. You can miss me with Josh McDaniels. I'm sorry. You can miss me with that. You could. But ultimately, why I say this move is, a pro Carson move is because obviously we've seen the rumors and the trade destinations for Carson Wentz. And one of them, the primary destination, was the Colts, because under Frank Reich, Carson Wentz had, his near MVP caliber season. So instead of, trading him there, they brought the Colts. Instead of trading Carson to the Colts, they brought the Colts to Carson and got the OC under Frank Reich, who he didn't call plays, but Doug Pearson didn't call plays either. And you saw he won a Super Bowl, so there's that. Nick Sirianni's 39, has had some, coaching jobs with the Chargers, wide receivers coach and whatnot, OC. So I like his background. Seems like a guy who can bring some things to the table. It's from the West Coast. It's from, the West Coast coaching tree as far as offensive systems. So some of the terminology will carry over to this Eagles offense and whatnot. Just seems like he has some more fresh ideas, some more innovative schemes as far as that's concerned, a little more modernist to his West Coast system. Because one of the things I lamented with Doug and why he should have been fired is that I thought he had been I thought he'd been figured out, and his offensive scheme had gone relatively stale, which appears to be, the issue. And, Jeffrey Lurie believes in having a top 5 offense to have your best chance of reaching the Super Bowl. So there's that. Now, one thing that people have been saying about this, and people are like, oh, well, why did you hire a guy to fix Carson? Well, he's a $128 million investment. Of course, you have to hire him. I mean, you have to bring in a guy that's going to fix Carson, which is what I think the Eagles should be doing. You invested all the money in him. We've seen this guy play at an elite level before. He had one bad year. People who were not for firing Doug. If Doug is allowed to have a bad year, why can't Carson? I'm just saying. I mean, this is the same Carson Wentz that the year prior to got the Eagles to the playoffs with a bunch of practice squad players. So I know he has the talent. I know he has the ability. But this year he lost his confidence. He lost his fundamentals. He needs to be built back up. And this guy has worked with Phillip Rivers. He's worked with Andrew Luck. And when he had a career year, his first year with Frank Reich as the OC. And he's worked with Jacoby Brissett. And he's a guy who's known to play to his players' strengths. So that's good for players like Carson Wentz. It's going to be good for Jalen Reagor because he was misused a lot in the Eagles offense last year. But this is obviously a move to salvage Carson. So I don't see the problem with that. The Jeffrey Lurie and Howie Roseman have invested a lot of money, a lot of picks into this guy. And we've seen the talent. So there's no question in my mind that that's what the Eagles should be doing. And I like this pick and I like this hire overall. Now, when we talk about, because one of the things people have been saying is Carson doesn't like tough coaching. And the one thing I like about Sirianni is, he has this nice looking face and all this stuff, He's a handsome man, whatever. But the thing I liked with a quote that someone said is that he's got more edge than Doug, can coach hard if needs to, or if he needs to. That's what I like, because not only am I looking for the head coach to, coach tough, and not only am I looking for him to have good schemes, but I also need him, to be able to get in some players' behinds when he needs to. Coach with some fire. And that's what I like about this hire, because you can't be lenient with Carson. I don't care how you got to fix Carson. I don't care if you got to coach him hard. I don't care if you got to be all up in his behind. I don't care what you got to do. I don't care if you got to resort to sorcery. But if you can get Carson Wentz back on track, this franchise is headed in the right direction. This franchise is headed in the right direction if you can get Carson Wentz fixed. Because here's what I believe. Carson Wentz is going to be he's the quarterback with the most pressure going into the 2021 season. He is. Because he's perceived as getting Doug Peterson fired. He's perceived as the guy who got this coach hired. And he's gotten him hired because of the season that he had under the organization that this head coach came from. So Carson Wentz is going to be the quarterback with the most pressure going into the 2021 season. No doubt about it. If he doesn't perform stellar, the Eagles will get rid of him. If he does, well, this franchise is right back on track, and all they need to do is get some young talent and stock this roster with, competent pieces to compete in 2022. So this really is all contingent upon how the quarterback looks next year. Because the Eagles aren't going to be good next year, but if Carson is good, then that's one less problem that you have to worry about. Then you just need to worry about getting some talent on this roster. And I know I berated Howie Roseman. I've criticized Howie Roseman. I still don't like him. Yes, this is all true. But unfortunately, I have no other option than to hope and pray that he lucks up somehow into getting some good players. He has to hit on this number 6 pick. There's no doubt about it. There's just no doubt about it. He has to hit on this number 6 pick. And the more I think about it, there's a couple of names I'd like to add to the list of potential prospects that the Eagles are going to use to draft or use with the number 6 pick. Because I don't think it's going to be a defensive player. I just don't. It's going to be an offensive player. Now that you've hired an offensive-minded coach and you want an explosive offense, I believe you're going to take an explosive playmaker at that number 6 pick. So here are my options. I've already outlined them before, but Jamar Chase will be my number 1 option. Then Devontae Smith. Then Jalen Waddle. But some other names I like to add to this list is Kyle Pitts and then Penei Sewell if he falls that far. Now, you may notice I added Kyle Pitts. I'm not for taking a tight end with a top 6 pick because in the top 6, you need to take, a premium position. And tight end is not a premium position. But the more I think about it and how much the coach used 12 personnel in their offense, the more I'm like, all right, if Zach Ertz gets traded, who is the other tight end? Richard Rodgers? Give me a break. So the more I think about it, Kyle Pitts could be in play at 6, or the Eagles could go Patrick Surtain, which I also wouldn't be mad at, but, he's not Jalen Ramsey or anything. So, you'd be kind of hedging your bets there, but, I wouldn't be upset with it if they drafted a corner there, but, it's just my thoughts. But when you're looking at this hire also, Nick Sirianni orchestrated 2 top 10 offenses in his 3 years as offensive coordinator with the Indianapolis Colts. The other thing I like about him is his wide receivers coach background, because the Eagles have had the worst rated wide receivers in the league 3 of the 5 years Carson Wentz has been here. So that's a position that the Eagles have flagrantly missed on year after year after year. Didn't have a 1,000-yard receiver in Doug Peterson's tenure here. Didn't even have a 1,000-yard rusher while Doug Peterson was the coach. So the skills position players and the production that you were getting, while it was admirable and while it was, okay, it wasn't nearly enough. I mean, when you're looking at these four teams in the championship games, let's name their wide receivers. We have Stephon Diggs, first in receptions, first in yards. We have Devontae Adams, second in receptions, sixth in yards. We have first in touchdowns. We have Tyreek Hill, second in touchdowns, eighth in yards. We have Travis Kelce, second in touchdowns, fifth in yards, and you have Mike Evans, fourth in touchdowns, 18th in yards. Like these are top skills players. You can't have an elite offense without elite playmakers. And right now, the Eagles' best playmakers are Miles Sanders and Dallas Goedert. Who's their best wide receiver between Jalen Reagor, J.J. Arcega-Whiteside, Greg Ward, Quez Watkins, and John Hightower? You tell me, because I can't answer that question. And they're like, well, what about Alshon Jeffrey and Deshaun? Those guys are going to be cut. So that's why I say the Eagles' number one need is still wide receiver. And it's funny that we're saying that after we used a first round pick on a wide receiver last year. So you have that going for you. But when I'm looking at this, I just hope that Nick Sirianni has some more updated schemes, some more innovative ideas. I know he has the West Coast offense. Hopefully he has some air raid concepts, some RPOs, some spread concepts out of that. So, and the Eagles hopefully have some more modern ideas, and hopefully he brings in some good assistants. I'm going to be on the prowl looking. I haven't read up enough on Nick Sirianni yet, so I'm just giving this, this information to you guys raw and how I interpreted it and from, the little bit of background that I got on him. But I know he helped Tyrell Williams to a 1,000-yard season when he was with the San Diego Chargers at the time. He also helped Keenan Allen to a 1,000-yard season. So that's impressive as well. So he can do some work with wide receivers. He can do some work with quarterbacks. He's never called plays, but hopefully he brings in some good assistants that, can help him out in the system. I'm looking into some assistants like Pep Hamilton from the Chargers because of what he's did with Justin Herbert. I don't know. I got to look up on some names as far as defensive coordinators, but I'd be trying to poach someone from the Rams. I'd be trying to get whoever was under Brandon Staley, and I'd be bringing them to Philadelphia for some new, fresh, modern ideas as far as defense. Or I'd be poaching someone from the Vic Fangio coaching tree as far as defense is concerned. That's what I would do as far as defensive coordinator. That's just my idea because I revere what those two have done as far as defense and trying to get away from the cover 3, cover 1, scheme that's all over the league and is really stale and predictable. So I prefer some more modern ideas as far as defense as well. But overall, I think this is a good hire. It's not a home run hire. It wasn't like it was a Lincoln Riley or it was a Eric Bieniemy. It wasn't one of the top candidates, obviously. But I think the Eagles got the right guy for the job. And let's remember, even though, he didn't call plays, even though he came out of nowhere, Andy Reid did as well. He came out of nowhere at 40 years old. He wasn't on anyone's radar, and the Eagles hired him. And look at him. He's a Hall of Fame head coach. And the Eagles are probably going to be chasing the coast of Andy Reid for a while, unless Nick Sirianni is the next Andy Reid for the Philadelphia Eagles. But we'll see. There's no way to determine whether this is a good or bad hire right now. I don't know. But what I do know is that Nick Sirianni plays his players' strengths. He's coached wide receivers with pedigree and has coached them to productive seasons. He's worked with Andrew Luck. He's worked with Phillip Rivers. He's worked with Jacoby Brissett and has coached them to all their strengths. He orchestrated an offense that had the fewest turnovers in the league in 2020. Colts only had 15 turnovers, 11 interceptions, 4 fumbles. So there's that. And I think, from what I've heard, the Eagles were impressed by the staff that he could assemble. So that's the other thing. So overall, and as a coach, he got some swagger. He's got some fire to him, which I also like. So overall, when we're talking about this, I believe this was the right hire. Personally, I wanted Joe Brady. That was my ideal hire. Joe Brady, Lincoln Riley, Eric Bieniemy. But Nick Sirianni, the more I read up on him, the more I studied him a little bit, and I still got some more, homework to do on him. But the more I read about him, the more I like him, and I like this hire. And if he can get Carson Wentz fixed, this organization's headed in the right direction, and they're going to be right back into contention. If not, then, well, I'm not going to vilify him for not being able to fix him. not going to fire. I wouldn't fire him for that either. It's just, hey, Carson Wentz, he just wasn't able to be repaired, and you cut your losses and you find a new quarterback. Or you see what you have in Jalen Hurts. But honestly, I don't know how anyone could be sold on Jalen Hurts either as the quarterback. But as for now, Carson Wentz is going to be the starter. So we're not even going to focus on Jalen Hurts. Maybe the Eagles will trade him and get that shadow from behind Carson Wentz as well. Hopefully they do that as well. But that's really all I got for you guys. I appreciate you guys for listening as always. If you have any questions, if you have any concerns, if you want to come on the show, because you know I love my guests, please, just leave something in the comments section. But until then, I appreciate you guys for listening. Until then, it's one love. This is AC signing off. See you when I see you.